Okay, guys, welcome back to the final episode of the campaign. Though, as a quick reminder, this is an epilogue. The last battle of the campaign, and the last episode that had battles, therefore, has already occurred. So, if you're just here for the battles, which admittedly my campaigns are primarily focused on, then the last episode was the last one. So, either, depending on when you're watching this, there's either a new campaign or two already out, or maybe you could watch an old campaign, but there's probably not much in this episode really for you. What we're going to do in this episode is we're going to do a map reveal of the current situation at the end of the campaign. We're also going to go back through my old saves to look at how the campaign progressed over time, as well as doing map reveals during some of these saves as well. We're not going to do every single save, but every, 2 or 3 or 4, I don't know, it just depends on how I feel. I'm pretty random when it comes to how much I actually pick, how many of these we actually do. And again, we'll do map reveals on each of the ones we do end up picking, just to see how the other factions were progressing during our own progression as well. Also, just mention a few things at the end, just a couple of quirks and things that I do during a campaign that may not make sense to someone who's watching. Certainly someone who's far more, who just plays Total War far more than I do, and may be confused as to why I do things a certain way. And we'll also talk about, things that I don't really talk about very much during the actual campaign, so my army composition and why I pick those units and things like that, though that'll all be closer to the end. So anyway, here we are. This is the very last turn. Literally, this is right after Morcar had taken Edessa, and we had constructed a couple of buildings. So we're not at the next turn or anything after the last battle. This is the same turn as the last battle occurred. So let's go ahead and reveal the map. And since I guess we're over here in the Middle East, why don't we start over here? We already knew the Mongols were over here. We already knew all about this. It looks like the Turks have Yerevan. That's how I choose to pronounce that. Which, by the way, when I say the names of cities and stuff during this map reveal, it is just how I'm choosing to pronounce it as best I can. I don't know how they're necessarily actually pronounced, so bear with me on that. Looks like Rhodes is rebellious, and I imagine it has been since the beginning of the game, considering that it hasn't really advanced beyond a wooden castle, which actually, is there a, let's see, toggle? Okay. I do not know if there's a perfect spy command, which will let us see like the garrisons as well. Give me a moment while I figure that out. Okay, well, I saw some articles that said it was toggle_perfect_spy, but that doesn't seem to be working. And I guess it's not terribly important that we actually see every little unit or anything, so we'll just leave that as it is. It's fine. So anyway, it looks like the Turks control all of this territory, which I kind of thought they did. So I guess it was possible the Byzantines would control some of it, and the Byzantines do control Nicosia. Right, they don't have much in the way of troops here. Very, very little in the way of troops, in fact. Venice holds Heraklion. Byzantines have Thessalonica and Corinth. This actually kind of looks like, not exactly like it, but kind of similar to the Barbarian Invasion map, where you just have Corinth down here, and that's basically it. I don't think it was Corinth, though. I think it was Athens or something over here. Thessalonica obviously was in the same place and same city. Constantinople. There wasn't a settlement here or here, though. There was a settlement here, but not in that exact place either. But it just kind of reminded me of the Barbarian Invasion map, really briefly there. So yes, the Byzantines, the Turks, and the Venetians just seem to have their territory kind of mixed up, partially because some of it is islands. Oh, the Sicilians actually hold this. I was actually wondering how well they were really doing, considering that they were at war with the Papal States. See, I think the Papal States controlled this at one point. But it looks like they lost it to the Sicilians, and I think the Sicilians controlled this at one point, but it looks like they've lost it to the Papal States. I also thought the Papal States must have or the Sicilians must have taken Rome at one point, because I thought that the last settlement the Papal States had was Florence, but I guess as we go through the saves, we'll be able to see that for ourselves. Now, before I go too much further west, though, I just want to make sure I'm finished with the east. I knew it. There are heretics around here. These are both former priests of mine, I think. Kill, kill!
Yes, Your Highness.
Oh, that's weird. I wonder... Oh, okay, I can target him.
This is the heathen in...
Yeah, you see, look how high their piety is, because they were, like, my guys.
Who is the heretic?
This place is just a haven for heresy! It's kind of funny, though, that Jeddah controls this entire region. Like, the border is here. And around here. So this entire, just massive province is controlled by Jeddah. Oh, there's an Egyptian navy in here. I never noticed them. That's funny. I actually thought I built the port of Cairo myself. But I guess maybe not. Maybe they did have a port themselves. I mean, they must have, because that's the only time they could have gotten the fleet. They never held Dongola or Jeddah. Well, actually, Jeddah doesn't have its port, neither does Dongola. So yeah, it must have been, they must have had a port at Cairo at one point. So that fleet's just kind of been chilling out here for not the entire campaign, but a considerable portion of it. All right, now let's go north, because we have the Russians up here, as expected. Well, kind of as expected. I thought the Mongols might have beaten them up a bit, because they've been at war with them for quite a while at this point. See, the Mongols, the Byzantines, the Russians, and they just very recently went to war with the Turks, though they don't seem to have actually attacked the Turks. Maybe there was a small army around here that they attacked, and that's how that war got started. See, who else are the Russians at war with? The Polish, and that's it. I guess it's kind of expected. They are their immediate neighbors over here. So here's my former allies, the Polish, and why do you have all these tiny little armies wandering around your territory? Well, I guess there's a couple of big ones, or at least medium-sized. The Hungarians, who only have one settlement. Oh, no, they have a couple. 4, even. I actually thought that Budapest might be their last one, because I thought that either the Venetians or the Byzantines controlled this territory, but no, they've got a few settlements here and there. All right, now let's continue west, and I guess this we kind of already basically know about, because it's... Oh, wow, I wonder how that happened. Has that always been like that up here, and I just never noticed? To be clear on something, I maybe even should have announced this at the beginning of the episode. We actually had our second crash. As I was preparing to start the recording for this very episode, I was here on the campaign map, and it crashed to the desktop. And now, to be fair, I'm not sure that's necessarily Medieval 2's fault, because I've been mucking about with its some of its library files and stuff, and testing like some other programs and mods and stuff, so I may have mucked something up. I think before I start my next campaign in Medieval 2, I will have to just do a full uninstall and reinstall. But anyway, that's not in anytime soon, so let's just get this let's get this recording over with before I crash some more. So anyway, Denmark, Poland, yes, we know all this, and I guess we know all basically of this too, of the Holy Roman Empire, and now we're back in my own territory. I think we already looked at this. Yes, we did. And yeah, there's nothing really to see over here. Oh, that's right. The New World. So yeah, I guess there's nothing to see really over here other than, let's see, here's the Moors. All right, we'll come back to North Africa in a moment because I want to just take care of this before, heading back. One of the, I almost want to say I'm disappointed that the campaign didn't last long enough for most of the campaign events to occur. Like the special ones, like the Mongol invasion. Obviously that one did occur, but it's like the only one that occurred. There are like 2, or maybe it's actually 3 or 4 other events that can occur that are kind of like big, like really important campaign map events. One of them is, I think, the Black Plague, or no, the Black Death. The Plague comes at one point, and it just like wipes out populations across the map. There's another event, like where gunpowder gets invented, and you could start building gunpowder buildings and get cannons and certain handheld gun units. So I don't think there's too many of those. And I don't think England has a very good selection anyways, but I think the cannons would have been useful for sure. And then I think at another point, the New World officially gets discovered, and so you see how the map here is kind of like blocked off. Like this border thing is actually much bigger than the one on the right. Well, it actually slides back, and you can then see these territories over here. And you could build ships that could sail over here, and you could start taking this territory as well. I also think that some of these resources are actually very valuable too, so you could get some merchants over here and really make some money. In fact, holy smokes, look at all these resources just kind of packed into this area. I think the chocolate and the tobacco in particular are very valuable. I don't think they appear anywhere else on the map, whereas, I mean, I think gold is valuable, but there's also gold to be had back in Europe. And the same with silver. But anyway, obviously, we never made it to any of those events, though. The only... Oh, and the Timurids! There's another faction that invades from the east, just like the Mongols did, except they're the Timurids, and my understanding is that they're even worse than the Mongols. I say my understanding. I'm pretty sure when I played Medieval 2 as a kid, I may have encountered them at some point. But I don't really remember. It was either so unmemorable that I just can't remember it, or it was so traumatizing that I've driven it from my mind, and I do not know which it is. But anyway, those are all special campaign events that can occur that we didn't see because the campaign just didn't last long enough. All right, but now, back to North Africa. Obviously, the Moors still have this territory over here, and I didn't realize it actually went quite this far down. Timbuktu, Arguin. Looks like none of these were ever taken, though. They've probably been rebel the whole time. I mean, I guess it's possible that they were rebelled against. Like, maybe the Moors did hold this at one point. Looks like there's some valuable resources, though, down here, too. I'm pretty sure ivory is a valuable one. There's gold mines down here. Well, there's also a slaves resource over here. It says it's a valuable resource. I'm not sure if that's true or not. In Rome 1, I believe that this resource would appear if you actually used the enslave option on a settlement. But it looks like in Medieval 2, it just kind of shows up like it's just a regular resource at certain places. But anyway, Marrakesh, it looks like the Moors actually have considerable forces. Algiers. The Venetians, I think, have held Tunis since either the beginning of the game or more or less the beginning of the game, because I can't remember really a point when they didn't hold it. And we have Tripoli. Oh, looks like the Venetians were possibly about to wipe out the Egyptians. Oh, that's right. I think they went to war with them as part of one of the Crusades and then just never got a peace deal, probably because they actually bordered them. So it might actually be worthwhile to go to war with them. Which is funny, because I actually got peace with the Egyptians myself. And yet they're sending troops over here as if they're going to declare war on me. Meanwhile, their last settlement is facing this huge, this quite sizable force of Venetians here. Yeah, that's an 18 stack that's got a whole bunch of siege equipment there. So it's quite possible Egypt was about to vanish from the map here. All right, but I believe that is actually it. I think we already looked at all this up here. Yeah, I don't think there's any part of the map we didn't cover. So let's go ahead and actually start heading backwards in time. I will bring you guys back each save that we load, just so that we can see how the campaign progressed. Okay, guys, welcome back. So this is actually the very first turn of the campaign. So this is just how everyone starts the campaign. Ah, from such humble beginnings, such mighty empires are built.
Your will, son.
Okay, there's Prince Rufus. Oh, wait a minute. Prince Rufus. Not Tostig, which means, I think I may have made a mistake during the campaign, because I thought King Tostig was actually the son of William the Conqueror. But no, he must have been like the son of Rufus, because Rufus would have been our second king. Right, of course, because he went to the Holy Lands during the First Crusade. And he died here. And I think his son was Morcar, and he was the one who went on the Third Crusade to Jerusalem, and he's still alive by the end of the campaign. So yes, it must have been Tostig who was the third faction leader, not the second. Okay. Well, that's interesting. I'll have to pay attention then to how far we get under King Rufus, because I don't remember exactly when he dies. Anyway, lots of rebel territories, lots of French over here. Oh, Portugal does start off with Pamplona. I actually wondered if they had, like, traveled across Spanish territory to get it, but no, apparently they just start off kind of split in half over here. And I guess this explains how the French were able to get a hold of settlements on the Iberian Peninsula here. It looks like maybe the Spanish and the Portuguese just didn't go for them. That's also why France, I don't think, ever went to war with the Portuguese or with the Spanish. It's because they could just take these rebel settlements without starting any wars. And I guess we'll just continue going south. We'll go through North Africa, and we'll just kind of swoop around the map in a counterclockwise direction. I don't think there's really anything over here. I mean, I think that's just how the map stays until the New World event occurs, and assuming anyone actually sails over there. Yeah, these all start off as rebel settlements. More start off... Oh, hey, Tunis actually doesn't start off under the control of the Venetians, so they must have sailed over here at one point to take it. These were rebel settlements too, so the Papal States and the Sicilians must have taken those at some point, and the same with Florence. We have the much-hated Milanese here. Okay, but hold on. We were going in a counterclockwise direction, so I guess, okay, there's that stuff there. Okay, Tripoli did not start off under the control of the Egyptians either. So they just started off with their territories over here. The Gaza. Oh, wow. Holy smokes. Most of this territory over here is actually rebel, or at least it is right here in the Holy Lands. I guess if you start the game as the Egyptians, you probably don't have to go to war with anyone for quite a while. You can just kind of start taking territories over here, and maybe you bump up against the Turks at some point, which, oh, they do start off with Mosul. Yerevan. Caesarea, Iconium. You know, I think the Turks basically have the same settlements at the end of this campaign as they do at the beginning, except for... See, I think they have Smyrna. Smyrna? Smyrna? That place there. And I think they maybe have Trebizond too, though. Was that... Did the Russians hold that, or did the Turks have that? I don't remember. I know they had Baghdad at some point during the campaign, but then they lost it. It rebelled again. Still, I think if you started off as Egypt, or if you started off as the Turks, your goal would probably be to just take as many of these settlements as you could and maybe put down your rival as quickly as possible in preparation for the inevitable crusades that were going to come. Oh, and you do have to somewhat watch out for the Mongols, because I do think they actually start off up here now, which is somewhat close, though not right next door or anything. Then we have the Byzantines. Wait, where did the Russians start off? Oh, okay, over here, Novgorod. Okay, they too don't really need to go to war with anyone right away. There are a bunch of rebel settlements around here that they can just take. Admittedly, they're kind of far away from each other, so it would take them quite a while to get around. That must be a hard start, especially since you then also need to be prepared to one day face the Mongol and maybe the Timurid hordes also pop up over here. That would be pretty bad. And you have the Polish, who are over here, of course, and a whole bunch of rebel settlements that the Holy Roman Empire, Denmark, and the Polish can actually fight over. Ah, okay, so Denmark does not start off with Stockholm. In fact, they start off... Oh, they start off with just one settlement, Aarhus. And we have the Holy Roman Empire, which starts off with a few settlements over here. Wait, did we look at Hungary? Okay, yeah, I guess we did kind of look at this territory. It looks like the Venetians start off with Ragusa. And then we've got Hungary over here. And we're back into kind of territory that we know. And we already kind of took a look at the Italian peninsula here. We've got the Sicilians. Basically have the same territory at the end of the game as they did at the beginning, except I think they hold Ajaccio as well. All right, but yes, that's the beginning of the campaign, so now let's go ahead and jump ahead just a bit. All right, so here we are. It is now turn 39, so 38 whole turns have passed. I wonder if I jumped a little too far ahead, actually. Then again, you go through turns very quickly at the beginning of the campaign because there just isn't a whole lot to do anyways.
My king.
Ah, so Prince Tostig has been born at this point. And actually, where is King... King Rufus should be around here somewhere, then. Where is he? Oh, okay, this must be him. No, this is Edward of Oxford, who would one day be known as the Mauler. Your Majesty...
Fleet ready, sire.
Where are you? Has he already gone on crusade? Is the crusade going on? Oh, it is. Oh, he might already be at sea then or something. Let's see, where... Let's see, the way he went is he actually traveled through France... through Marseille, and right here he managed to hire some mercenaries to start taking him over to the Holy Lands. Oh, there he is.
Aye, sire.
Yes, King Rufus. There he is. He was just about to get to Cairo, but he did not get there in time, as the Milanese and the Hungarians were already here. All right, but anyway, so yes, William the Conqueror is already dead by this point. Which means, yeah, I guess what I said in one of the later episodes was true. Basically, he died somewhere around the end of Scotland. And I think right now we're basically just at war with France. Oh, Spain. We were at war with Spain as well because it just sent like a random ship to attack us or something. Or like a random tiny little army to attack us, which is why this wall is damaged. But anyway, yes, so right now we're just taking rebel settlements. In fact, actually...
Command me, sire.
Yes, this is when Edward... I was trying to decide whether I should head south to Bordeaux or east to Paris. I think we ended up going east to Paris.
An order.
Then we had Prince Tostig. This is actually a new army for him. And I think Antwerp is actually the first place he takes. The Danes were neutral at this point, though not for very long. They really, really wanted to take Antwerp. And there's no rebel settlements in this area now except for Bern. In fact, I think Bern remained a rebel settlement for quite a while until the Milanese took it. And even then, I think they only took it as they were basically losing their war against me. I mean, this hasn't changed very much at all. In fact, the settlements haven't changed at all, except for Zaragoza has been taken by France. And Valencia must at some point. We won't go over to the New World since we already know that not much of anything should have actually happened over there. Though actually, I am somewhat curious. Okay, I believe the armies haven't even actually moved from their positions yet. I'm pretty sure these guys were hiding in ambush over here the whole time. So not only will the settlements not change hands or anything, but maybe the armies don't even move. Maybe when we load the next save, I'll just check that really quick and see if the armies don't even move from their positions. Okay, so see, even this early in the campaign, the Venetians have actually taken Tunis. Oh, so the Papal States actually took Ajaccio, Cagliari is how I'll pronounce that, and Florence. So actually, they went on a conquering spree, which maybe that's why the Sicilians and them end up going to war, because the Sicilians don't have anywhere to expand to, so they attack the Papal States instead. All right, so let's continue around here. Okay, so the Egyptians must have taken Tripoli somewhat early on as well, because they've got it here. See, Dongola remained a rebel settlement right up until we took it, so that's expected. Jeddah remained a rebel settlement until the end of the game. And it looks like the Egyptians really did go on a conquering spree up here. Acre, Jerusalem. They're going for Antioch. And I think they do hold it by the time we get over there, so there's that. Oh, the jihad for Baghdad is going on. Though I don't think he's going to win that.
I do not seek trouble, Sadiq.
That's weird. I thought you needed like at least 8 units. Well, you need at least 8 units to join a crusade. And I imagine that's still the case with the jihad, so maybe he lost all of his men?
Noble ruler, but I am not a dignitary.
And none of this territory has been taken yet. Looks like the Turks are having some rebel issues. Okay, the Byzantines actually took Trebizond. Naturally, the Russians are ranging far and wide to take more and more settlements. And boy, have they actually. I know it's been quite a few turns, but again, early in the campaign, turns go by quite quickly since you don't have like a whole lot of territory to manage and a whole lot of armies. But still, the Russians have gone on a conquering spree. I'm pretty sure they hold all of this by the end of the campaign. Oh, the Polish have Kiev. But I don't know that they do at the end of the campaign. I thought the Russians had that. The Hungarians are down here. Pretty sure they hold all that territory at the end of the game. The Byzantines are over here. Oh, the Sicilians have Durazzo. I wonder if they still hold that by the end of the campaign. I didn't think they did. Zagreb. And the Holy Roman Empire didn't do much expansion, I don't think. If any. I think this was all their starting territory. I think like this part was all rebels, but it looks like the Polish took all of that, and then Denmark took that. So yeah, the Polish, the Russians, the Egyptians all went on a conquering spree. Well, and I guess England went on a conquering spree. The other factions either still have like more or less their same territory, or maybe they took like 1 or 2 rebel settlements. Let's see, I think we already looked at like Italy and everything as well. Okay, so let's go ahead then and... Oh, actually, the Danes did take Stockholm by this point. All right, but yes, anyway, let's move on to the next one. All right, so here we go. We made a jump of like 40 turns last time, and now it's only a jump of 20 turns, even though I made like... I think I skipped like 3 or 4 saves both times. So as you can see, the turns are slowing down dramatically. The French have not been pushed out of France yet, though they are kind of on their way. The Milanese, curse them, have attacked us. In fact, I think they've already taken Algiers at this point, and then we took it back from them. Pretty sure that's the case. Who have we got? Okay, there's the beginnings of the general army. This actually might be the Richard that ends up taking command of one of our armies, though I'm not entirely sure of that.
Hail, my king.
Henry the Cuckold, okay. I think he eventually becomes Henry the Cruel. Which, by the way, he was in charge of this, like, general army for quite a bit of the campaign. I think he died just before the end of it, kind of like, Edward the Mauler. I think they died more or less, or very near the same turn. And all of my long-serving generals were dying towards the end there. We lost Edward, we lost His Majesty, King Tostig. Richard was actually quite young at that point, so I think he wasn't even close to being lost. All right, but yes, anyway, who are we at war with at this point? Okay, still just France, Denmark, and the Milanese. Yes, because the Danes just really wanted Antwerp, and I think the Battle of Antwerp, or wait, was it Antwerp or was it Bruges? I think the Danes might have attacked Bruges, not Antwerp. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it was Bruges. They certainly wanted Antwerp, but I think we managed to check their advance more than once by the general force here, because they kept sending these little tiny forces here, and we just kept intercepting them with our generals and killing them. Yes, the French have been beaten on multiple fronts at this point, and we're just kind of attacking them in the south here. I think we are about to be slowed down by the Pope. Oh yes, we are. In fact, it looks like it was this very turn. You see, I'm besieging Toulouse, and he's given us this mission to leave the French alone. And so I think that's exactly what I do, is I abandon Toulouse with, who's in the command of this army? Edward. Edward, the someday to be Mauler. And I think I sent him over here, and he ends up taking Genoa. I think. There's Prince Tostig. We do definitely beat this Milanese force. Okay, the French have taken Valencia at this point. Nothing else has changed hands, though it looks like the Moors want Lisbon. Are they actually at war at this point? Let's see, Portugal. Yes, they are at war with the Moors. Actually, the Spanish are not at war with the Moors. Okay. All right, so now let's quickly check on the New World. Have these guys moved from their position? No, they have not. So yeah, I think they just probably stay there. Maybe once the event occurs, they get like kind of triggered and will actually move around. Or maybe they even stay there until like another army arrives. Like from across the sea. Okay, nothing really is changing over here. Everyone who... Oh. Why is there a Papal States army over here in front of Tunis, might I ask? I mean, I don't think the Papal States ever went to war with the Venetians. They are at war with... so look. Sicily did take Rome at one point. That did happen, and it looked like they nearly took Florence, too. Well, I say nearly. Okay, there's the Pope himself. Let's say there's 6 units there. Yeah, I'm not sure that was a good matchup for the Sicilians, to be honest. I think the Sicilians do take Ajaccio, though, because I think they finished the campaign with that settlement. Looks like the Moors are at war with the Papal States, and they're going to try and take Cagliari, whatever. This place. I don't know that they will, though. See, there's 1 unit there. There's 4 units there. Oh, wait, no. That's the besieging army. Okay, there's 3 units here. So it was 4 units versus 4 units. I mean, maybe they took it. But maybe not. Okay, Egypt, of course, is holding this territory. And here is where we have begun our glorious conquest of the East. His Majesty King Rufus is still around at this point. Cairo, Alexandria. I think he comes down here to Dongola to take that before then declaring war on the Egyptians, who we are not at war with at the moment. The Egyptians have not taken Antioch yet, though I think they do eventually. The Turks have taken Smyrna at this point. Yeah, I guess it is the Byzantines who maybe finished the campaign with Trebizond. Russians haven't advanced too much further south yet, but they have taken Bulgar. They hold all of this territory here. Oh, Denmark took Helsinki. Oh, I need to check that once we circle back around to the end of the campaign, because I didn't think they held that at the end of the campaign. So in which case, when we take Magdeburg, or not when, I was thinking that if we ever picked up the campaign again, I thought taking Magdeburg would actually finish off the Danes at that point, because I thought that was their last settlement, but it may not be. Maybe they hold Helsinki, or maybe the Russians took it from them. I thought the Russians held all of this territory. We'll have to double check on that. The Holy Roman Empire hasn't really changed at all. In fact, they just don't really change, I think, throughout most of the campaign. The Hungarians are, I think this is more or less what they finished the game with. Though maybe the Polish have Iasi, maybe? I'm pretty sure the Venetians don't finish with Sofia. I thought either the Hungarians or the Byzantines actually had that. Okay, the Sicilians do still have Durazzo as well. Bern is still a rebel settlement, though I think the Milanese will take it somewhat soon, probably during our next jump, which is now. So, once again, we will jump ahead. All right, and welcome back to the cold, harsh winter. We are at turn 78. So I actually think we have jumped. What was it, turn 59 last time? So we actually have jumped another 20 turns, or more or less. I guess we've jumped 19 turns, but close enough. It's more or less as big a jump as it was last time. We now hold all of France. See, this is Edward of Oxford. He still has not yet earned his title of the Mauler. I guess he did spend most of the campaign as Edward of Oxford, though I think by the time we get to maybe Bern, he's known as the Mauler. Who's this? This is Prince Nicholas, who will finish the campaign, I think, as His Majesty King Nicholas.
Yes.
King Tostig is here. So King Rufus has died at some point between turn 59 and turn 78. So, okay, so all this territory, or at least most of this territory, was conquered under the reign of King Rufus. Though, admittedly, a lot of it was actually taken personally by Tostig when he was a prince. See, the Milanese have not been finished off yet, and they have taken Bern. You're very close to finishing them off, though I guess it depends. Yeah, you see, look, we have two missions to stop fighting the French and to stop fighting Milan. And it looks like I have decided to turn around at this point, so I assume this is one of the times where I actually choose to actually listen to the Pope and not attack them. Okay, yes. In fact, I think we probably end up taking Bologna instead of Milan. Oh, wait, is that how it went? Did we take Bologna first and then come back from Milan, or did I just wait in my own territory and attack Milan afterwards? I can't remember. Well, regardless, we know at one point all of this will belong to us. All right, heading down south. Nothing obviously will have changed at this point. Do we need to keep checking the New World? I guess not. We won't check it any further because, yeah, they're definitely not moving. Not even, like, moving their armies. And, of course, no settlements could possibly change hands. This is all still rebel. We've got the Moors. We've got the Venetians. And it looks like the Papal States army is gone. The Sicilians did, in fact, take Ajaccio. But they failed to take Florence, and the Papal States have counterattacked and taken Rome. We've got Egypt over here. We've taken Dongola at this point, as well as Gaza, and Jerusalem is currently under siege. This is when Morcar actually earns his moniker of the Crusader, as he's about to take Jerusalem and complete that crusade. The Egyptians have taken Antioch at this point. It looks like they were trying to take Aleppo and Edessa, which is funny because this is... Should you really be doing this when I'm attacking you from the south like this? I think it's a little late to be taking rebel settlements when you've got an enemy who's literally just taking your stuff as you come up here. Oh, okay, they have taken Baghdad as well. It eventually rebels against the Turks, but for now it looks like it's still under their control. It looks like the Hungarians were sending an army to join the crusade. Or to go on crusade. I guess they've already joined it at this point. Oh, and here are the Mongols. The Mongols have invaded. Okay, so they don't come from up here, and they don't come from down here. They apparently come from, I guess, here? This doesn't look like all of the armies that they would eventually have, but wait a minute. Wait, who are they at war with, if anyone? They're at war with the Byzantines. Why are they at war with the Byzantines? I mean, the Byzantines do have Trebizond, so it's not too far away, but you'd think they'd be at war with the Russians or the Turks first. I wonder if the Mongols in my game just didn't go very far then. If they start off here, and they just kind of wander... I mean, they finish off the game, more or less, let's see, I think right around here, around Yerevan? What do they do? Just kind of wander around in circles, not taking any settlements? That's kind of interesting, I guess. Not really what I expected. I think nothing's really changed over here. Constantinople. Oh, there's a Imperial army on crusade over there, but we'll cover that territory in a minute. First, let's take a look at what the Russians were up to. The Russians still hold all this territory, except for Helsinki, which the Danes hold. Well, the Polish have Vilnius. And Kiev. Oh, they must have taken that away from the Russians then, because or wait. Did the Russians have that by the end of the campaign, or was it the Polish? Well, I guess they're not at war with each other right now. The Polish certainly did manage to expand, though. I guess even more to the west than they did to the east. Well, it looks like they have a crusading army of their own, but I don't know if they just joined or something, because they appear to be going in the wrong direction. Alright, so the Byzantines are down here. Okay, Sofia is still held by the Venetians. Durazzo is still held by the Sicilians. Okay. And I think we already went over Italy and everything, and I think this is all more or less as it was as well. Alright, but anyway, looks like this is all good here, so let's go ahead and skip ahead once more. Okay, so we have skipped ahead a few saves again, and again, I think it was 4 saves that we skipped ahead, and yet it has only been 7 turns at this point. So I think we're just going to have to kind of blaze through this, because I doubt too much has changed. Dijon is no longer under siege. Staufen is under siege, which means we must have gone to war with the Holy Roman Empire at this point. And by we, I mean they have declared war on us, because the only war that we declared this entire game was against Scotland. Everyone else declared war on us. Milan has fallen, and so has Bologna. So yes, that is the end of the Milanese there. Actually, yes, we've been given a mission to stop fighting the Milanese, and I think we may have, this might be the one we ended up ignoring. Yes, I think it was, and I think this is when we were excommunicated. The first time. I think we were excommunicated twice, but the first excommunication didn't last very long, because the Pope died shortly afterwards. Alright, let's see. This is Edward, right? And yes, he's the Mauler at this point, so I think he gained it during the siege of either Milan or Bologna. Then we have, yes, this is the general army. I remember I sent them to take Staufen. We've already begun our attack against the Danes. Richard here is fighting the Danes. And yes, I believe this is the Richard that we pointed out earlier. He got his own army at this point. See, Robin Cornwall is moving to join him to be his backup army. Okay, this must be after the very first siege of Pamplona, the one where we got through the first set of walls but couldn't get any further. Because now we've got the prince here, Prince Nicholas, who was holding it under siege for like 1 turn. But then the king immediately... Oh, no, the king doesn't attack it next turn. He gets attacked by a Portuguese force, which... Oh, we didn't toggle the fog of war. Then again, we weren't really out of our own territory yet anyways. Yes, he gets attacked by a Portuguese force, which this must be them, because they were out in the fog of war and I couldn't see them.
We are not contesting these waters with you.
We are not at war with Spain, but I think they were actually going to attack us again with like another little 2-unit army. And I'm pretty sure we scare them off because we just train up a few extra troops there. Okay, nothing else. Nothing else by the look of it. We won't check the New World. I'm sure nothing has really changed over there. And actually, it's only been 7 turns, so I imagine most of all of this is exactly as it was. Except for, you know, the stuff we took, which I've already pointed out anyways. The Egyptians... Let's see. Yeah, so we just took Antioch from the Egyptians, and once we eliminate this faction leader here, that's actually the end of their involvement in this area. And in fact, that's the last battle we fight against them, because we remain at war with them for a while afterwards, but eventually we get a peace deal out of them. Or actually, they come to us with a peace deal. But I was gracious enough to accept it. Wow, the Turks literally left Baghdad without a garrison. Like, not even a single unit. I wonder if that's why they rebelled, because not having even a single unit in there is usually a huge public order negative. Okay, nothing's changed over here. Nothing's changed over here. Oh, this must have been the Hungarian army that was on crusade. They're probably trying to head back to their own territory. And yeah, here's the Mongols. They just kind of moved over here, and they're going to give me a scare pretty soon. Because they actually thought they were coming down here to fight us, but I guess not. See, Russia holds all of this. Danes still hold Helsinki. Which, are the Russians at war with... Okay, they're still only at war with the Mongols, so okay. Duly noted. And yes, not much has changed over here, though I guess Staufen will have changed hands very, very soon. And of course, Hamburg has changed hands, and Aarhus will very soon as well. Did we check all the way down here? Yeah, it looks like the Venetians still hold Sofia, and the Sicilians still hold Durazzo. Yep, this all basically looks the same. Again, it's only been a few turns, but it's actually been a few different saves, so a number of battles have occurred. But I think as we jump through these saves, I think more and more it'll just be things that I've done that will change, and the AI not so much. Alright, but now that we've circled back around, let's jump ahead again. Okay, so we've jumped ahead a few saves again, and actually this time it's been 8 turns. I think last time it was 7, so... I didn't think we jumped... I mean, maybe we jumped ahead 1 extra save, but still, that's kind of odd that it's only 1 extra turn, but I guess it has slowed down considerably as we get towards the end of the campaign. So, let's take a look here. Metz and Staufen and Bern are all ours, so the Milanese have been destroyed at this point. But we won't go any further east because we are going to circle around back to them anyways. So the French were only just recently destroyed. Actually, now that let's toggle the fog of war. Okay, this actually belongs to Valencia, so technically this is my territory, and I never realized that. I think in Rome 1, there's actually there's a settlement here on this island. And so it actually belongs to that settlement rather than to anything on the mainland. So anyway, France has just fallen, though we have not had any fight with the Spanish yet. We're not at war with them. And yes, nothing should have changed over here, though I guess something might have changed over here. Yes, no, doesn't look like it. Okay, as we get closer to my territory, yes, this is when I thought the Mongols were going to come down here and attack us. So I have Morcar over here, and eventually I have him retreat back towards Antioch, but then the Mongols just kind of turn around and leave. Let's see, none of this territory has changed hands by the look of it. Baghdad has rebelled against the Turks. Oh. There are more Mongols up here. That's strange. Are they actually spawning more and more armies? Because I don't remember them having quite this many the last time. I thought this was all of the forces they had like last time, but there's a whole bunch more armies, and these look like full stack armies too up here.
Fear is a weapon. Wise generals, it does not.
Yes, they do. They have full stack armies up here. Okie dokie. I don't know. Is it really a bad thing, though, to be at war with the Mongols? Because I can't help but notice that they're attacking nobody. Like, yeah, they're at war with the Russians and with the Byzantines and eventually the Turks, but they don't actually take any territory from them before the game ends. So is it that big a deal, I guess, for the Mongols to be at war with you? Don't think so. Okay, Russian, Polish, Polish. Helsinki is still held by the Danes. The Russians still at war with just the Mongols. Okay. Hungarians still hold all of this. Venice still holds Sofia. The Sicilians still hold Durazzo. This must have been shortly after the death of Edward the Mauler. In fact, it must have been just the previous turn, because we literally immediately have Samuel take command of his army the very next turn. So this must have been when Edward died. We've taken Oslo at this point, but not Stockholm. In fact, Richard's army is still here, so it'll be a few more turns, but he'll head to the east and take Stockholm very, very soon. Yeah, and we've already gone over this. Nothing has really changed here. Okay, well, looks like that's it. We are definitely taking shorter and shorter to go through these, so I think we either have one more save to go through, or it's back to the end of the game, and I guess we'll see in a moment which is true. Alright, so it looks like we only had a couple more saves to go, so I just jumped back to the end. And interestingly, it's 11 turns into the future, so I think I did have maybe a few turns there where I actually spent a fair bit of time on the campaign map, and there were no battles. Oh, actually, that's probably true because Morcar was actually... He actually had to spend a few turns getting to Edessa. Or, wait, no. Yes, Edessa. And so there were a few battles there without turns, so I guess maybe that's why it kind of looked like that. But, again, this is the end of the campaign, so this is the campaign map we already went over, which... Yes, indeed, they have not moved. I figured I'd check on them one final time, and we already looked at the map as a whole. But really quick, there were a couple of settlements that I had questions on. Okay, this is all as it was. Okay, so the Sicilians do still hold Durazzo at the end of the campaign. The Venetians still hold Sofia. The Danes still hold Helsinki! Even if we do pick up this campaign at some point in the future, destroying Magdeburg will not finish off the Danes. Unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Okay, who are the Russians at war with? Okay, they are at war with Poland at this point. Okay, but they don't have Kiev. Poland has Kiev. Right, okay. I guess that answers all of my questions then. And yes, it looks like the additional Mongol forces have come down south. Well, southwest at this point. So all of the Mongol hordes are now here. Alright, so I guess that's the main meat of the epilogue. So just to quickly go through some other questions really quick, or not questions, but just things that I did on the campaign map. Early on in the campaign, I wasn't sure what to put as like an extra division in my army, because basically I would have 7 units of infantry. Well, here, you know what, let's grab an army so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about here.
Hail, my king.
You're missing a few units, as is that army. Actually, all of my armies are retooling at this point, aren't they? Except for maybe Morcar. Okay, I guess Morcar is the closest to a full army at this point. So what I would do is I would have 7 units of infantry. This army is short one, which is why there's a space there. 4 archers, 4 cavalry, well, I guess 5 if you include the general, and then there was a 4th bit of the army, and that kind of changed over the campaign. The very first armies that I had actually used Hobilars as that extra unit there, so I basically had some light cavalry in addition to the heavy cavalry of the mailed knights. And I really just wasn't sure what to put there, and so I just figured I'd put them there, because having extra cavalry just seemed like a decent idea. At the time, I only had peasant archers, so I couldn't, like, use, like, extra longbowmen, for example, or something. And I didn't realize that ballistas would be useful. In Rome 1, I basically consider ballistas to be kind of useless. Well, not kind of useless, I consider them to be absolutely useless. But in Medieval 2, the AI demonstrated a couple of times that they are useful. They actually can take out like the smaller like wooden walls of some of these settlements. And these smaller wooden walls of Medieval 2 I think are more of an obstacle than the little wooden palisades of Rome 1, which is maybe why I don't think of using ballistas very much in that game. But I think I really should have in my initial armies used ballistas to take out some of those wooden walls and then eventually upgrade them to catapults. But I dropped the Hobilars pretty quickly too, though, before we actually left England, or the British Isles, I should say. I had replaced my peasant archers with longbowmen, but I think I then replaced the Hobilars with billmen, who have like the same upkeep costs and everything, but they're cheaper to recruit as the levy spearmen, and I thought maybe they were an upgraded unit, but I eventually decided that they really weren't. They basically have their attack and defense swapped. Well, actually, they do have a much higher attack than the levy spearmen have defense. But I thought that basically they could kind of serve the same role as levy spearmen, where basically they would be the frontline unit that would kind of hold the line, while archers and, cavalry kind of, swooped around and got in the enemy's rear or shot them to pieces. Like, they could just kind of hold the line the same way the levy spearmen can, but I don't think that's true. Because yes, that higher attack does mean that they would kill faster, but that lower defense means they would also die faster, and since holding the line means surviving for a while, even if you don't necessarily kill a lot of guys, they definitely couldn't fulfill that role. So I think I had them like work in conjunction with the levy spearmen, where the levy spearmen would hold the line, and then I'd send the billmen forward to kind of assist them. But I just overall don't think they're a very good unit. I don't think swapping, like having a good attack with a low defense is necessarily a really good unit. I mean, they are effective against armor, but I think most heavily armored units, like dismounted feudal knights and stuff, their attack is almost comparable. So even if you can shave away some of their armor, they'll still end up winning that fight. I eventually stopped using the billmen as well, and that's when I started getting catapults at that point and realized that should be the final bit of the army there. I also didn't really have like a middle unit, a middle infantry unit to switch to because, all right, our initial archer unit was the peasant archers, right? And then we upgraded them to longbowmen and then upgraded them to yeoman archers. And I think there's actually another archer unit, the retinue longbowmen, who we would then have upgraded to again. And the cavalry were like that too. We went from mailed knights to feudal knights, and we would eventually be able to go to English knights, I think. Though I think because we got Hospitaller knights, we actually upgraded to them first. But you see, there's clear upgrade paths with some of these units. And the artillery, again, ballistas to catapults to trebuchets. The problem with the infantry is that I think the billmen are filling like the middle slot between levy spearmen and some of these heavier units here. But again, I don't feel they fulfill that role very well. I almost feel like there should be an armored sergeant in here instead of billmen. And actually, if you go into custom battles, the English actually do have armored sergeants in their roster. So I actually thought I would have armored sergeants when I went into playing as England, and I only found out later that I wouldn't have them. So what I started doing instead is there's a very, very common mercenary unit, and you guys definitely saw me do this quite a bit on the campaign map. Mercenary spearmen, who are definitely better than the levy spearmen. Yeah, that was 7 and 14, and this is 5 and 10. So they're definitely like an in-between sort of unit. They are basically the equivalent of armored sergeants. They are, however, more expensive than, say, the armored swordsmen. 150 upkeep there. And these guys have 185 upkeep. Which the armored swordsmen are a bit of an odd unit, and I wonder if this is kind of like almost like a compensation for the fact that they don't have a good middle unit. Like you either go with crappy levy spearmen or you have great units. Because most of the other factions around here have dismounted feudal knights, who are a good unit, but as you can see, they're a lot more expensive. They're even more expensive than the mercenary spearmen. But then you look at the armored swordsmen, and they're actually a slightly better unit. They've got 1 extra defense. But they're even cheaper than the mercenary spearmen. And I wonder again if that's sort of like a compensation for not having like a middle tier unit. It's like, yes, you'll have to suffer through not having armored sergeants, but once you push through that development, you'll get this really great unit, which will actually be only slightly more expensive than your levy spearmen and will be cheaper than the enemy's dismounted feudal knights and everything else, but they'll just be a much better unit. Both cost-wise and stats-wise, they'll be slightly better than the feudal knights. So I think this is actually a great unit for the English. And when it comes to the dismounted English knights, I feel like they're kind of in the same boat as the billmen. They have this extra heavy attack, but a much weaker defense than their equivalent knight class, but they're also armor piercing. Now, to be fair, I do think the dismounted English knights are a much better unit than the billmen, just because their defense is so much higher. Like, they could survive against other units even better while still being able to chop away at them. Though I probably wouldn't end up using them very much myself, because, once again, I feel like they're kind of like the billmen, where if I could have a unit, I think I just prefer the armored swordsmen. They're cheaper. They're a good all-around unit that can kind of hold the line, but also take a wall or fight down the streets, and it doesn't really matter what kind of unit they're fighting. Whereas I feel like these guys could get chopped up by some units. Again, not as badly as the billmen. I think they could hold the line better, but I feel like they would only really be totally, like, really useful against maybe, like, a heavily armored unit, like maybe the dismounted feudal knights. And even then, they wouldn't win handily because of their own low defense. I feel like they would just kind of trade with the dismounted feudal knights, or I guess they would never have to fight armored swordsmen, but... Well, actually, the armored swordsman can be a rebel unit, so there is actually a chance that the English knights could fight them at one point. But most likely, they would be fighting against dismounted feudal knights from other factions, and I feel like, yeah, they would probably win that fight, but it wouldn't be like a handy victory. Whereas the armored swordsman can win against most any unit. Alright, but anyway, I think that's it for the army composition. When it came to like military and economic recruitment, if you saw any of my epilogues for like my Rome 1 or Rome Remastered epilogues, then I guess this is basically the same thing, except with the quirks of Medieval 2. I would have a recruitment center. In this case, it was Nottingham and York. It was going to be Caernarvon as well, but to be honest, it didn't grow as fast as these two. And to be honest, because Medieval 2 allows you to recruit more units much faster, I think I only needed 2. Like, if I were to play this campaign again in the future as the English, I would make Caernarvon just a regular settlement, and just leave York and Nottingham as the castles and military recruitment centers here. And then literally every other settlement would be a city, except for occasionally, I would allow a castle to continue existing. And this was mostly so that I could have like recruitment centers where I could actually train an army over here if I needed to. But more importantly, armies that were in the field could be resupplied and retrained. And so I would periodically allow a castle to exist. Now, having 3 exist right next to each other like this is something I wouldn't have done. But I kind of eventually changed my mind just because it took me a while to get from Toulouse to Toledo. Because what I would have done is have Toledo and Pamplona be the the citadels or castles of this region, and I would have changed Toulouse to be a settlement, but it took me a while because of like the Pope's meddling and stuff for me to take them out. So I ended up building up Toulouse, and so I just decided to kind of leave it. In this area, it was Metz and Staufen that were the castles or citadels, if you will. In this region, it was going to be Hamburg and probably Magdeburg once I take that. But all of the other castles and stuff that I took, I converted to settlements. So Bern was a castle. Bordeaux was a castle. I think Caen was a castle as well. I think it started off as a castle. I don't remember if there was another one. Oh, Inverness was a castle. And I think that was the case over here as well. No, actually, I think Gaza and Acre were both always castles. Oh, Dongola was a castle. But yeah, over here in the Middle East, Acre and Gaza are the military supply and recruitment centers, and everywhere else would basically be castles or settlements, cities. Adana was a castle. Almost forgot about that one. Actually, so was Aleppo. So I've just been changing settlements left and right from castles to cities, because I just don't feel that they're really necessary. The benefits of a castle are not only military, like being able to train up some better military units, but also they're just harder to take because they have multiple sets of walls. But to be honest, I don't worry about that too much. I'm really more concerned with actually the military recruitment. And even, let's see, if you go to... Let's see, I have a huge city around here somewhere. Oh, Bologna. See, eventually they get some heavy bill militia, so I was thinking I might actually replace the spear militia with them once I got them, but I never quite made it in time to get to them. Yeah, because you see they got 15 and 10. I don't know if they get any armor upgrades, but if they do, that would actually make them handily better than the spear militia, who start off with 5 and 7, but if they get gold armor, or gold-rated armor. The armor isn't actually made out of gold. That would certainly be some expensive armor that probably wouldn't be as good as steel anyways. But you see, fully upgraded, their defense only equals the defense of the heavy bill militia, and the heavy bill militia have a much higher attack. I just feel they would be a better unit fighting in the streets, but of course, we never made it to that point, because that's a unit you can only get in a huge city. Having archer militias in the cities were quite nice. Because then if you needed to take out some rebels, you could actually bring some archers with you. But I guess they would also have been useful in defense. But to be honest, I'm struggling to remember a time where we actually had to defend a city with stone walls. We definitely fought some defensive battles with wooden walls, but I'm trying to think, did we ever defend a settlement that had stone walls? Because then you get stone walls at the level of a minor city, which is also when you can start recruiting the archers. Yeah, I can't remember. So anyway, that's it for economics, the army, the way I do things. I think just the very last thing that I would mention is some of the strategies that I employed that maybe were confusing to some people. And I really should mention this in the prologue and not just in the epilogue. But basically, there's a couple of things that I know other people do that I don't when it comes to some of the battles. So for example, I never auto-resolve any battles. I know that's a little more common, I think, later Total War games, where, units just kind of replenish in the field anyways. But even when I was easily going to win a battle, I always fought the battle, even against like these rebels. Now, I didn't show you guys those battles, of course, because I don't think that they were terribly important, but I actually fought them. So there were actually many battles that occurred off screen that you guys never saw against like just random rebel units. Maybe against some very small units that belong to other factions as well. I think I mentioned early on that the Danes were sending like little 1-2 unit stacks over here to attack Antwerp, and our generals were killing them. Well, I actually fought those battles, but you guys, I don't think saw... Maybe you saw 1 or 2 of them, but you definitely didn't see the dozen or so battles that actually occurred. Well, okay, dozen, maybe that's a lot, but somewhere between 5 and 10 battles, and I think you guys maybe saw 1 or 2. And I don't think you guys saw more than a couple of rebel battles unless they were taking settlements. You see, I'm not against showing you guys small battles, but they have to be almost like contribute to like the story of the campaign. So like if we're taking a settlement, well, obviously we're progressing forward. We're getting closer to the end. Or maybe if there's a significant rebel force that's standing between like one of my armies and its objectives, and it's, you know, a decent sized force, well, then maybe I'll show you guys that one as well. But generally speaking, those battles, you guys just didn't see them. And I would only show them if I thought they like contributed to the story of the campaign. Something else that I always do is I always fight battles to the end, and you guys definitely would have noticed that one. Basically, anytime that message comes up that says, "Congratulations, you won the battle. Would you like to continue, or do you want to end the battle now?" I would just automatically click continue. I wouldn't even consider hitting the end battle. And I mean, there's not like a really, how you want to say, a good gameplay reason necessarily for why you do that, or why I do that. Certainly there are circumstances under which if you were just wanting to get the most out of a battle, you would hit continue, but I would do it even if that wasn't the case. Because I don't consider the battle to be over until it is in fact over, as in all enemy units are either dead or have successfully made it off the battlefield. And that's just kind of a me thing. I realize there isn't like a particularly good, again, gameplay reason for that. I just feel like the battle isn't over, and I do kind of enjoy, I almost want to say like the victory lap of it all. Like having my cavalry run around and take out fleeing units. Like I consider that like still an enjoyable part of the battle. Like almost like kind of like, again, like almost like you're doing like this victory lap after, you know, a hard fought battle, and you're now just, you know, enjoying taking out the fleeing enemies before they go. I enjoy that. And so that's why I always fight the battles to the end. That's also the case with like settlement battles where, you know, they route towards the center of the settlement. They don't route off the battlefield. But there's also the opportunity at times for you to still end the battle because they don't make it back there in time. Or you have an opportunity to take the center of the settlement and run down the timer and just win the battle that way. Well, you'll definitely have noticed that I had opportunities to do that during the campaign, but I didn't. And that was very deliberate. Like, I'm okay with maybe running a unit through the center of the settlement to, like, attack the enemy in the rear to get them to, like, rout and then just, like, killing them all or taking them prisoner before they get to the center of the settlement. But I never want to win by, like, not fighting the enemy, by, like going to the center of the settlement and then just, like, winning by, you know, some magic countdown timer. So, yeah, even if, like, the timer runs down to 0, if it gives me the option to continue the battle, which I believe it does, then I would just continue the battle. And I wouldn't have units just sitting in the center of the settlements. You know, I would have them go and find an enemy to attack, like, maybe in the rear, or to take them out before they get back to the center of the settlement, or something like that. Like, I don't want to win by... I just consider that part of the battle, like actually fighting through the streets all the way to the end and killing the very last defender or taking them prisoner. And it just seems silly to win via some either magic timer or, again, by just having the enemy start to flee, but no one's in the center of the settlement. So you just get the message that says, hey, you can end the battle here right now. Well, the answer is always continue battle for me until the battle ends. So if you were looking at what I was doing in a battle and being confused, like, hey, why isn't he taking the center of the settlement? He could just run down the timer. Or why isn't he, you know, just ending the battle now? He doesn't need to chase down those fleeing enemies. Well, I feel that I need to, even if from a gameplay perspective, I don't technically need to. All right, but anyway, this epilogue has run on for quite a long time. I'm sure many of you have left by this point, but if you stuck around, thank you very much for listening. This is the end, though. This is the last episode of the campaign, so thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future campaign.